Well, hello everyone, and we've got one person's come already. I know some people are not coming because they can't make it. So I'm recording this, as you can see. And those of you who got a ticket, or those of you who want, can have the playback. And I'll be sending the playback to all the ticket people. So they will be able to get it and they will know what I'm talking about, and they will be able to participate in the future, which is really important, because there's lots of future going on in this. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen for you, assuming I can get this right, which I usually manage to do. Let's get it into slideshow. No. Yes, it's going to do it. Well, there we go. This webinar is about tell your story, telling your story. And that's quite difficult for people, and I did not mean to go there yet. It's not the easiest thing in the whole universe, but telling a story often feels like this, with one of the older people, one of the elders, telling stories to the kids and the mum and the cat and the hens and everybody else who's there. I didn't quite grow up with that, but it was quite close. So I'm going to unshare again for a minute, because I've given you the idea and the title, and just be talking to you. So to start us off, you may not know, some of you do, I think, I'm quite an ancient old bat. And I've been doing this storytelling malarkey for a good long while now. And inside my rather shaky body, you see these bits, I've got rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis, 3 crush fractures in my spine, 2 new knees, a new shoulder, and rebuilt feet, and a partridge in a pear tree. Of course, because you can't do without that. But inside all that, I'm still 25, and I bet most of you are too. But I'm 25 with all the wisdom garnered from all my years of living, which, don't let the secret out to everybody, but it's nearly 75 years now. So I've been writing and rewriting and telling my story all my life. I look quite good on it, don't I? You don't have to sag. You don't have to go brain dead just because you've lived for 3/4 of a century or longer. Reliving, rewriting, rediscovering my story keeps me alive. It keeps me awake and aware, and it keeps me connected. And telling my story and telling your story for you will mean you'll still be jiving too, right through and well past 100. It really helps you live life and not just exist in your life. So down to business. Please put comments and questions in the chat and I'll catch up with them in due course. But to start you off with, and I'm going to go back and share my screen for you, I hope. Please excuse me not being brilliant at this. Let's go. Come on. Come on, little thing. You can do this thing. Nope, we're not doing it. So sorry about that. We will reverse again. And I'll just tell you what it is, because the share screen wasn't that exciting. I had a picture up at the beginning, didn't I, of this old man in the kitchen with the mum, with the kids, with all the animals, telling the story. Well, my dad was like that. He's what we call a cyfarwydd, and that's in tail weaver in the old British tongue, in the old British language. So I was brought up on stories, old ones from our ancient British past and new ones that Dad would make up on the spot. And, the older kids in the village would tell stories too. We'd go out, pack of kids, round a fire, roasting potatoes and sausages. And one of the older kids and the girls and boys would stand up and start telling us stories and it'd be full of facial expressions and looking like demons and monsters, and also lovely fairies and beautiful things as well. And we grew up in stories. I've just told you I'm pretty ancient. So this was before we had Xboxes, before we had even mobile phones. So we made a lot of our own entertainment, and a lot of that was stories, making them up, telling them, acting them out, all of that sort of stuff. Now, you probably know our ancestors, and that's all over the world, they handed down the law, the ethics, the values through story. And we still do. Think about Cinderella and Snow White, Briar Rose, that's Sleeping Beauty, Baba Yaga, Lord of the Rings for more modern ones, and The Never-Ending Story, Star Wars, Batman, Krull, Narnia, and Pirates of the Caribbean. The list goes on. Lots of them are lovely films now too. They're all stories showing us how to live successfully and happily, so we feel fulfilled. And those stories, they also show us how we can screw it all up as well, which is where the bad guys come in and where the mistakes come in and all the rest of that stuff. And we love stories. I mean, look at the popularity of Netflix. I'm an addict. I get on Netflix at least once a week. And it's such a lovely break because I'm taking myself into a story and I'm thinking myself into being the protagonist and sometimes the bad guy too, because that's quite fun. And I'm going through the story with them. I'm feeling how they feel. And sometimes it can be really emotional, sometimes it can be really funny, and often very exciting. And I learn a tremendous amount from stories. I learn much more from remembering what happened to Lucy in Narnia when she got in and out of the wardrobe. And I learn much more about what happened to her. I learned much more from what happened to her, how she got through her problems, how she discovered she got a problem all in the first place, as she does when she meets Mr. Tumnus and discovers that actually it's not all sweetness and light. It's actually really quite difficult, and she very nearly got captured, but it's all right now, but she hopes he's going to be all right. So there's all this stuff that happens. And I learn from what she says, from what Mr. Tumnus says, from what all the other characters say. And the same thing happens for me with all of these stories. And I bet it does for you too. We remember stories because we can feel personally involved in them. Whereas an academic book telling you the facts of how to do quantum mechanics or some crazy thing like that, you sort of go, yeah, and you're struggling and you've probably got a frown on your face and all that stuff. If somebody told you a story about somebody doing it, it'd probably go in a lot better. I also run tell your story groups. People come together into a group program and we tell our stories. I help people tell their stories, but we'll go more into that later. There's some more stuff for you before we get there. Now, Tell Your Story, this program of mine, it's about you and your story, because your own personal story has lots of things in it, just like the movies, just like the good stories we love. But lots of us have hang-ups around things like that. Now, I'm just wondering, whether, Janie, have you got any hang-ups like that? Let Claire in.
Oh, yes. Oh, Claire.
What sort of hang-ups do you have, Janie?
Mainly things that, mainly coming from the mainstream media. They're the stories that they tell, and they push their stories onto us so that there's a disconnect from the traditional stories. And the traditional stories are empowering, but the modern stories that the media are telling are saying that you have to look a certain way and speak a certain way and earn a certain way. And they're dictating how we're meant to be. And that's what you're saying about it being in the mental rather than the physical. It's saying, do what I say, not do what I do.
Indeed. And how would that affect you when you come to tell your own story? Would it make you a bit nervous because you didn't fit the bill
Yes.
and you didn't fit with the mold? How about you, Claire? How do you feel about that? If you don't fit the mold, would you be scared to tell your story? Right, sorry. So we're not going to be able to get anything from Claire in the actual talk because she's just recovering from surgery. But do put comments in the chat, Claire, because lots of people do have these hang-ups. I have done. And it's a real problem at times. It really gets you down. We have all this stuff in there, which is like nothing special ever happens to me. I'm really boring. I don't fit the bill. I don't really look like this or earn like this or work like this. And I'm not normal almost. And I'm embarrassed by the things that I do wrong, apparently wrong anyway, because people tell me I have. And nobody wants to hear about me. I'm just not worth it. And these are stuff that we have all of our lives, all the time, in all sorts of ways. But they really do squish our stories down. But as some of you know, I expect, I write novels as well as how-to and factual books. And the things that make a good story are all about tension. They're actually about conflicts. They're about decisions we have to make and choices and dreams. Dreams that maybe we want and we haven't had. Dreams that maybe we have tried to have and not been able to make come real. And all of these things come in all of those stories that I mentioned. I think about Narnia, think about Kroll, think about The Never-Ending Story. All of those things, there's the conflicts and the tensions, the decisions that the protagonists have to make and the choices they have to make and their dream, what they want to happen. And can they do it? All of that we have in our lives. But often it's the tensions and the conflicts we find hard to bear, hard to recall. They hurt. Does that ring bells for you? Yeah, Janie's nodding, and I think Claire's nodding a bit too. It certainly does for me. There are bits in my life that I really don't want to remember. And they were really hard to remember. They hurt. And I'm ashamed of them often because I feel I should have done something differently. I feel I did wrong. I feel I made a mistake. And sometimes I feel I hurt someone when I didn't mean to. But they're there. And when you read a book, go and have a read of a novel over the weekend coming up. When you have a read of a book, you find that the protagonist, the heroine, the hero, they go through all of this too. They get things wrong. They make mistakes. They hurt people and are hurt themselves. And that's what makes you really feel for them. They feel real to you because they're doing things not necessarily quite the same as you, but they're doing the same sort of things as you. And also, they have things that are holding them back. And I'm sure you have things that are holding you back, but you may not be able to actually see what they are because they're scary, they were bad. This happened to you when you were 6 in school and nobody would speak to you for a week afterwards, and you're never going near that again, ever, 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 because that's how I feel about some of mine. I'm sure you've got one or two yourselves that are like that. So you won't look at them, you won't go back to them. But they're like having a stone in your shoe. And you keep on trying to walk, and I won't take my shoe off. It's all right. I can get used to it. It won't matter. I'll be all right. And you're not. Your foot's getting more and more bruised every step you take. And those things that are holding you back are like that stone in your shoe. You're going to have to take the shoe off sooner or later. It's going to happen. Or else you might just have to take the whole foot off. But we won't go there. That's too horrible to contemplate. But you have to get a hold of that stone and take it out of your shoe. And similarly, it's really important to get a hold of those things that you haven't been able to dare to face, you don't want to face, that are so painful. Because as long as you've got them there, lurking around in the background, they will have the same effect on the whole of your life that shoe is having, that stone is having in your shoe. And they give you things like all the things we all suffer from nowadays: stress, overwhelm, burnout, anxiety, relationship problems, all of the stuff that happens with ourselves, with our partners, with our jobs, with our children, with our friends. Can even happen in the supermarket if you're on a bad day. Who hasn't had a minor supermarket thing happen to them? Because I certainly have, and I bet you have too. And it's because you're not really knowing yourself. And you can't know yourself while you've got these lumps in your past that you have hidden, you've covered up, you put blankets over the top of them, you buried them, you stuffed them down in the attic, down in the cellar or up in the attic, and you're not going to look at them again. Now, telling your own story, writing it, telling it, finding it, first of all, remembering it, doing all those things, they will help you dig out those bits. It's a bit like I just mentioned the film, The Never-Ending Story. Your life is like that too. Stories are supposed to have beginnings, middles, and ends. Well, yeah, you will have an end eventually. That's fine. But you're nowhere near it now. You're right in the middle of it. But you've got so far. In that sense, you have all the things that have happened to you up to now. All the good things and all the bad things. And you need to remember them so that you can put them the right place, put them the right size, see them properly. When you don't look at something and it's hidden away, I've had lots of problems with things like not having enough money at times and being really poor and then being okay again. But in the really poor times and the bills come in through the post, been there? Yeah. And you're not going to open that envelope. It's got the electricity bill in it and you're not going to open it. It's absolutely awful. There's those kind of things that happen to you. So you actually build up things worse for yourself. So learning to tell your own story helps you learn how to get through that and see those things. Because when you're not looking at them properly, it's like having a whole bunch of dragons and ogres and trolls in your cellar who keep sort of trying to break out, and then you shove them back in again and they come out again. And it's not funny. Now, to the stories, back to the movies again. Just remember one of them. And it's just those things that come up in the story. And the heroine has been trying to do something and things are going wrong. And all of a sudden, around the corner, there is a dragon or a troll or something that happens if it's a nice fairy story, fantasy story. And when we see that, that really gets our blood up. We're sort of, immediately, what's going to happen? Is she all right? How's she going to get through this one? Because, she's this lovely little princess and she might have a sword or something. But, the dragon's about 50 foot high, breathing fire, big long teeth. How's she going to do it? And it feels like that. That electricity bill can feel like that to me. That I've just come up against this huge great dragon breathing fire at me. And the heroine finds ways through it, or the hero. They find ways round it, through it. And sometimes it's doing a George and the Dragon and slaying the creature. But let's go back a bit to Bilbo and the Hobbit and Smaug. He doesn't kill Smaug. And he's a tiny wee little hobbit, and it's beautifully put in the film because the size difference is just phenomenal. And of course, Smaug is really beautiful in the film as well. And Andy Serkis does him pretty, it's not Andy, is it? Anyway, the actor does him really well. But what does Bilbo do? Bilbo teases him and tricks him and keeps him talking. And eventually he gets the treasure that he needs, sees it, gets it, and runs like hell and gets out of there. So there's more than one way of overcoming our challenges. And sometimes what also happens is that you actually find that the dragon was guarding your treasure, keeping it safe for you until you had time and the ability and the wisdom and the learning and all the stuff to actually work with and use your treasure properly. That's a story that Carl Jung is very into, and my early training was in Carl Jung, so I'm very keen on his dragons. And he says, in the unconscious, here be your dragons, and they're guarding your treasure until such time as you can use it and work with it. And they're actually your friends. And some of what else happens then is that while you're talking to the dragon, maybe you're not tricking him like Bilbo did with Smaug, but you are talking with him and proving, and sometimes it's a her, your dragon, you are proving to that dragon that you are now wise enough and careful enough and clever enough and brave enough to actually use the treasure that the dragon has been guarding for you. That's really exciting. And that's part of what we do when we are on the Tell Your Own Story workshop. It takes time to do that, but everybody gets there and they all find that this dragon they had to trick, this dragon, maybe they had to bump him off, and this dragon actually becomes their friend. Or maybe it's an ogre or a troll even, who actually becomes, I was looking after you. Now show me you're good enough. Show me you're up for this now. Show me you're not going to make a mess of it if I let you have this treasure. So you show them, wow, how do you feel when you've done that? Is that cool? Yes, it is. So you're going to learn all of that on the Tell Your Story. You're going to manage all of it and learn it. And it's not hard, and it's actually fun. It can be very emotional as well, because you uncover things and they do hurt again. But you're not doing it on your own. You're not sitting there in the little cave of your living room, in the sofa, in the half dark. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a cat to cuddle or a dog to cuddle, but there's no other human next to you. There's no other human near you. But in the group program, there is, because there's all the like-minded, lovely people that you're working with who are going to help you, because you're going to help them too. And you're all safe. Nobody's going to be hurting anybody else. Everybody's going to be respecting everybody else. So you've got a group of like-minded, respectful people. You will feel safe and secure. And gosh, you've even got me. What more could you want? No, I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm looking good at looking after groups and helping you all to be there. So it's really quite fun. And you come out of it so much more confident. You've learned how to open yourself up safely. And that has shown you how to hold your boundaries, how to stand in your own power, and how to be yourself. Like I said, you'd be so much happier, so much more joyful. And in your work, in your business, it'll like rockets under it because you are strong. You are using all of these things that you've uncovered in your past, and those that you no longer need, you've given a gold watch to and sent off to retire in the Bahamas or wherever it is, or maybe even put them in the compost bin to compost into something new if they're past their sell by date. And the others have become your friends. So you found that you've actually got 2 trolls, 1 dragon, and what else could we have? An ogre. Yes, we could have an ogre. And they're your backing group now. They've been scaring the proverbial out of you for I don't know how long, all of your life till you met them. And now you suddenly find that they're up there and they've all got your back. Now that's cool. And it's these things that you were ashamed of, that you were frightened of, that hurt you. A lot of those you will find they're actually your friends. And it's like a whole big mind shift. And once that mind shift is happening, you suddenly go, from being here to being, yay, right, okay, what's next? And that's enormous. And that comes just from knowing your story, knowing your past, accepting it because you've made your peace with it, had a fight with it, become friends with it, whatever was required, but you haven't hidden the envelope under the sofa cushion. You've opened it and said, right, okay, get a telephone. Can't do this week. I'll do this next week. Right. Thanks very much. Goodbye. And the whole problem sort of shrinks down from being, like trying to climb Everest to being just stepping over this molehill. Well, maybe not quite that much, but you're getting the idea. So this is all the stuff that learning to tell your story can do. It teaches you to think of more than one way of getting through a problem. Just because there's a huge, great dragon lying on all your best treasure doesn't mean to say you've got to bump the thing off. Possibly you might say, hi, how's it today? You don't happen to have a cup of tea, do you? Or whatever. Perhaps not like that. But you will find yourself actually getting braver, that you can actually start to talk to the fearful things. And that you can either decide you are brave enough to fight them, clever enough to trick them, having fun enough to make friends with them, or fast enough to run like hell and get out of there, which can also be the answer. Because we don't go into this whole tell your story thing with any expectations. We go in full of expectancy, but without expectations. So we're right open to what might happen, to what we could do, and to out of the box thinking so that we can find new ways of doing something. We haven't got to do things in the same old, same old, same old. And it's probably doing things in that same old way that has got you into this state where you can't look at things in the first place. I know it does me. And I get one of these situations happening. Houston, we have a situation. And I sort of think, hang on a minute, just step back. What was this? What happened? What was going on here? And you get that skill. Cool? How cool is that? Does it tempt you to want to find and tell your own story? Would you like to meet these guys who've always been terrifying enemies or people you wanted to avoid or shameful things, and wonder if possibly you might make friends with them? Maybe they even become part of your backing group. If you do, then you probably do want my Tell Your Story group program that is coming up on the 6th of June, I think it is. I'll tell you in a minute. But let me give you a little bit of an idea of what we will do. We don't work. Lots of people, when they say, tell your story, they sort of say, right, go back to the day you were born and go through it chronologically, la, 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 date order in this way. We don't do that. Because actually people don't work like that. People don't really work in a chronological, logical way by order. We get an idea. We get a picture in our heads. We get a vision or a memory. And we go, oh, and that's where we start from. So the very first thing we do is we go in and do a lovely breathwork exercise that takes you to your heart. And you ask your heart to show you the memory that you want to start from. Maybe you're feeling that now, even as I'm talking. And then you have that memory. And now we're going to record it. Now, I'm going to give you a way to record it because lots of the ways that people use, they can restrict you. They can make life more difficult. So I'm going to take you back pretty well to childhood. And you have to buy yourself one or two things, like a roll of brown wrapping paper, sort of about 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter kind of thing. Brown wrapping paper because it's nice and strong. And get yourself a box of crayons. You can get the whole jolly boiling on Amazon for about 10 quid, 15 quid. Because what you're going to do when we've done this first heart moving thing and finding your first memory, which is your heart moment memory, you're going to draw a symbol, maybe a talisman sort of thing, a symbol to remind you of what that memory is. And it's going to be right in the middle of the page. Because the work that we go from there is to start at that heart moment and then allow the heart moment to take us out and out and out, rather like a spider's web. And each memory takes you further out, and then it links up to another memory and takes you to another memory. So you end up with this wonderful network, this wonderful web, which is the story of your life that you need to know right now. It's never going to be your whole story. And your heart knows very well which bit you need to know now, which bit is going to help you through where you are now. Your heart actually knows that much better than your head does, because your head brings in a whole load of other worries and stresses and problems and burnouts and trouble. Your heart won't do that. It'll just go, here you go. This is what you want. This is what you want. So we start there and we work through each memory. We use our 5 senses to explore the memory. We use the 4 functions of, your body knowing, your instincts, your heart, your feelings, and your mind thinking, and most of all, your intuition, the bit that's totally woo-woo and nobody can explain, but we all have it. And we're all a bit embarrassed about it. Well, a lot of people are. But we're going to use all of those. But goodness me, Mother Nature's given us 4 functions. She's given us this body knowing. She's given us our feelings. She's given us our intuition. She's given us our heads and our minds and our thinking. Which one, how many of them do we use? Just 1. So we waste 3 of the perfectly good and very useful functions that she gives us. So we're going to stop doing that on this Tell Your Own Story. We're going to have a go using all of them. And you all work together. You all share. And you share with me. And I also give you all a private Facebook group where you can go and share with each other and ask questions and get feedback and help each other. Because I'm all for people helping each other. I think that really works. So that's just a little tiny bit of what you're going to do. And if that feels cool to you, if it tempts you, then what you want is what I'm probably going to give you any minute now. So let's get back to share screen and get to something that I can, not that one, that I can actually work with. And I'm going to gallop through here because this is what you want. You need to know that your story is your own, that your story matters because it's uniquely your own, and no one can tell it the way you can. It's the one thing that you have, to quote Neil Gaiman. It's your voice, your mind, your story, your vision. And as he says, on the workshop, on the program, 6-week program, you're going to write and draw and build and play and dance and live it as only you can. And you're going to share it with everyone else as well. And whoops. This is what I'm offering you. Tuesday, the 6th of June, I'm going to start. It's a 6-week program. And it's on Tuesday evenings. That's 6 p.m. on Tuesday evenings for Britain, 7 p.m. for Europe, and 1 p.m. for America, East Coast America. A bit earlier than that for Middle America. And it will be 6 90-minute live interactive sessions where you're going to be doing things, you're going to be sharing things, you're going to be sharing your ideas and what actually happens. As I said, there's a private Facebook group that you will belong to that nobody else can get into, just your group and me. And there you can share and get feedback and ask questions. And the people who come will all be feeling like you. They will all be like-minded. They'll be committed people who are safe and willing to be safe and to help others be safe and be respectful of you and your environment and really care for each other, all of you. Now, if this turns you on, and if you book your place by the 2nd of May, that's a week, booking opens tomorrow, then you'll get 10% off. After that, going back up to full price again. And we get quite a few people. I hope we will. And we just work together. Now, I've got some questions here, which I feel I should take some notice of. If I can move this blooming thing. Can I do it? No. Yeah, Claire. Claire's saying, completely relate to Who Wants to Hear About Me. I felt like that too. And the shoe thing. This whole thing there, you've got something that you don't want to look at, don't want to deal with. And no, Claire, I haven't published my autobiography. I haven't had time. Haven't had time to even write it yet. But we will see that we will do maybe in the future. So have you all got the details? I'm really easy to find, ellensentier.com/tell your story. And the booking details will be there, and it opens tomorrow. And don't forget, if you can get there before the 2nd of May, you get 10% off, which will be nice. And I shall really enjoy working with you. Now, as I said, there are other people who wanted to come but couldn't come. So they've given me their email addresses, booked themselves a ticket, and I will be sending out playback tomorrow to everybody. And really looking forward to meeting you. After a week or so, I think I'm going to give it like 2 weeks. then I will be putting this out publicly and allowing other people to come as well. But you all get first choice. So, any questions, anybody? No questions. Am I done?
Oh, right, I posted something in chat, but it's not come up. I wanted to ask how did you first get published? Because it looks like you set up your own publishing facility, the Green Pea Boat, was it?
Pea Green Boat. I did, but then I got picked up by a publishing company who saw the Celtic chakras actually, and well, they saw something else, and they said, "Excuse me, I suffer from dry lips." They said, want you to write for us, and so it all sort of started, which was very nice, and so I'm continuing. But probably expanding, I hope, this year, because I want to go much more into writing novels. And yes, Claire, I will have a go at that autobiography sometime. But writing, I'm not asking you to write your autobiography in the workshop, in the group program. I'm asking people to have a go at finding themselves, finding their story, finding the bits that are hard, and working with them to make them into easy bits, non-existent bits, because you can just dissolve them because they've done their job. You no longer need them. And friends as well, if you want. So how does that feel?
Sounds good. Thank you.
How does it feel for you, Claire? Can you put a thumbs up in the chat or anything? Not getting anything yet. Don't worry about the typo, Claire. It's absolutely fine. I do typos all the time. That's what we have editors for. And you don't need to worry about typos in your own story either. That's not one of the important things in life. So I shall leave it there and fold this one up. And do keep in touch with me. Do connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I shall look forward, I hope, to working with you both and with lots of other people as well. And don't forget, it's 6th of June. But if you can make it by 2nd of May, it's a bit cheaper. Take care, everybody. And look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future.